The second service bulletin that's an important one is the two that they issued on the landing gear, and more particularly the fuselage frame. This particular tube right here that supported the landing gear, front landing gear attach points right here. This tube on the original airplanes was 3/4 035, and it was just a little bit weak for the typical student training that they were doing with these airplanes during CPT. A few hard landings, and pretty soon this tube was subject to failure, and if it failed in any way, then the bottom longeron was subject to bending, and so they had some issues with that. So the first service bulletin was a kind of an in-the-field fix, and we'll show you a picture of that, or one of the airplanes that I've got here has that part of that fix visible so you can see it. And it involved drilling holes through the vertical tube and then putting two plates on both sides of it and bolting, and then also bolting it down here to the bottom longeron. So it beefed it up, and you could do that right in the field without doing fabric work or anything else. You could add that structural member to the thing. Later on, they decided that that was not a very good fix because it still was not working well. And so they came out with an alternative fix which was much more thorough. It involved an insert tube in the bottom longeron and then removing the original tube, and I'll show you an original tube, and then replacing it with a larger 7/8. I think the service bulletin says 7/8 058. So it was a pretty hefty tube that they put in here. And then they added a triangular gusset. Now this one is somewhat undersized, but is certainly adequate to do the job, especially with this heavy tube here. So on just about every cadet that I've ever seen, there's been some variation on this repair situation. But make sure that it has been repaired. The original tube is just too light and is going to be subject to failure. And I've only seen a few airplanes that have had that original tube on it, including this one. Oddly enough, the opposite side tube, which we'll show you, is the original 3/4 tube, and this side has been repaired in the correct manner. So this airplane probably had a left gear failure. In fact, here's repairs right here. So they repaired this side, but they never bothered to repair the other side. A little bit unusual. So we'll take a look at some of the various repairs that have been made and the variations, and then show you one that's really done correctly and is definitely the way to go. Here's this other tube on the other side of the fuselage that we were just on the other side. Now here's the right side with the original size tubing in here. But they have come in and put in a little triangular doubler in here to help support that. This tube probably would be okay, but I think I would replace this little triangle here with a much larger gusset to fit in there, as per the second service bulletin they put in. So look for these 3/4 tubes. If they're the old original 3/4, probably need to take them out and or beef them up with a little larger gusset. I'm going to show you with on this fuselage with a pointer an early fix repair that I talked about earlier about the service bulletin. So right here where I'm touching this tube, this is an original size tube, and you can see a series of, I think there's four or five holes that were drilled right through that tube, and plates were installed on it, and we can see that on the other side of the fuselage. This was an early fix and wasn't found to be all that satisfactory, and that's why they reissued the service bulletin to do the triangles and the heavier tube. So we'll show you that also. On this fuselage we can see that the vertical tube has been replaced. They've got a 7/8 tube in here, and then they have added rather large gussets on both sides of this repair here, and that really locks up your gear situation and complies with the service bulletin and gives you a really rugged situation. These are probably a little bit bigger than what you would normally need, but they certainly accomplish the task. And the other value to them is that they're welded onto the center line of the longeron down below, so they don't affect either the fabric or the boot cowl installation and upholstery on the inside. So your best location for your triangular gussets is right in the middle of the tube. That pretty much covers all of the information about those service bulletins, and those are things to check on your restoration process. And hopefully you've got a fuselage that's all complies with all of those and is a good strong fuselage.